All right. You ready? Gonna do a good job. Here we go. You're listening to CreepGeeks Podcast. Hello and welcome. This is the CreepGeeks Podcast, Season 6, Episode 229.
Cryptidcon 2021, Mountain Monsters, Wild Bill's Clock, Old Friends, New Friends, and Paranormal Podcasting.
Yeah. That was good. I like that. So here we are again. Welcome to the CreepGeeks Podcast. We have a lot of stuff to talk about.
Sure do.
So if it's your very first time tuning into the CreepGeeks Podcast, we're an offbeat podcast exploring the paranormal, cryptid, supernatural, and basically all that good stuff. And we broadcast from our hidden bunker location. Where are we? Deep
in the mountains of western North Carolina.
Yeah.
Okay.
A little Appalachian for you.
Yeah.
All right. So anyway, welcome back if you've been here before. If you haven't been before, welcome. So here we go.
And who are you?
I'm Greg.
And I'm Omi.
I was like, what do you mean? Who do you think? Who are you? Let me tell you a little story.
Okay.
About the origins of the CreepGeek Podcast.
All right.
Okay, so anyway, it's kind of what we're going to talk about. We have a lot of stuff to talk about, but we're primarily going to wrap it all up into one big thing as to why we didn't do a podcast last week.
Sure.
Because we are at Cryptidcon 2021. Kind of nice. Okay, so here's the deal. So with our podcast, we like to do a couple different things, but one of the things we need to do first is tell you how you can get a hold of us should you have something you'd like to share.
Yes.
So there you go.
The first way is you can give us a call. We have a toll-free number. It's 575-208-4025 with a Roswell area code. Go ahead, give us a call, leave a message, and don't just leave a message saying, hey, call us back. Tell us a little bit about what you want to talk about. You can also reach out to us on our website, creepgeeks.com. Click the little Contact Us button on the left-hand side, or I guess you can email us or reach out to us on social media.
Yes.
And we'll provide links to those in the show notes for every podcast episode.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what we do. So that way you can kind of take a look and see some of the stuff we talk about if you want to follow along and learn. You can do that if you want. But if you just want to sit back and relax and enjoy, you can do that too.
Okay.
I mean, let me adjust the mic and get it closer to
your mouths.
My creepy, manly Creep Geeks voice. Let me go ahead and tighten this up.
Okay. That is
there
so
Go.
loud.
It is. Well, my microphone was sagging. So, okay. So what we did last podcast is we talked about some of the stuff that we did on our spooky trip across the season. I mean, across the U.S. is our spooky season trip.
Yeah.
Well, with this particular podcast, we decided to take a little break because we had to go do Cryptidcon.
Actually, we've been on the road for almost 60 days, pretty much, and it ended with going to Wild and Weird Con.
Yes.
And then Cryptidcon.
Yes.
So we rounded out our whole spooky season road trip, or paranormal road trip, with 2 paranormal cryptid events. Yes.
And when we say cons, like Cryptidcon, con is actually short for a conference.
Yeah.
And Cryptidcon is basically a weekend-long adventure for crypto enthusiasts, right? Where this is where you get to meet like television personalities. You get to see vendors that sell, basically cryptid-themed stuff like Bigfoot, UFOs, ghosts, creepy, paranormal, supernatural type things.
Yep.
And you get to see like artists who write these sort of stories that go along with it, podcasters of different flavors and types, us included.
Yeah.
And some of the personalities you see on TV shows. So you'll see like movie personalities. So it really depends on where you're going and what con you're going to in order to be able to determine who you're actually going to see. So it does vary, you know what I mean? And what made Cryptidcon so good this particular year, because it was actually canceled in 2020, was who was there. I mean, you have Mountain Monsters, which is pretty big, and they're a group of people from the mountains that go out and they hunt monsters. And it's fun. It's a fun, happy show. It's, they get out there and they're a little enthusiasm angers me. Because when you get too enthusiastic, man, it makes me feel almost like I need to try to reciprocate.
Yeah.
And I'm not that guy.
Oh.
But I mean.
You're an observer.
No, I'm one of these people that like to be involved, but just don't drag me in on the whole thing. You know what I mean? I got to be in it on my own. I got to be all in on my own. And I'm like, I'm not one of these guys looking at people dancing around the room like, come on over here and dance. And they pull you in there and stuff. I'm not that guy.
Not bandwagon.
No.
Okay.
No. I'm like, you know what? Keep pulling on me. I'm just going to start a scene where it's just a thing, Yeah. I don't like being dragged into that sort of thing. But it's a good show because after you watch it for a while, you will be dragged in on it.
Okay.
Right? So they're there. Who else was there? Finding Bigfoot.
Yeah.
I like Finding Bigfoot. It's kind of I don't want to say opposite because it's not, but I mean, they're out there looking for monsters as well, primarily Bigfoot. That's why they call it Finding Bigfoot. It's slightly different take on the entire thing. You've got scientists, researchers, they've been doing this for a while. All of them together have some credibility built behind what they do, along with longevity in the field of research. And they were there too. That's a rarity when it comes to these conferences, or cons, as we say with quotes in the air.
Yeah. So they had two significant, what do you call it? Syndicated shows.
We don't know if they're syndicated. I mean, that's a little bit different. But two on TV, you can see them shows that people watch, like millions of people watch these shows.
Yeah.
And it was great. They were there, and and not to do anybody else any not to sell anybody short, or there was a ton of famous people in the cryptid and the Bigfoot and the UFO. I mean, just
paranormal.
Yeah, paranormal community there.
And art community. Yeah, everybody was there.
Yeah.
Nearly everybody.
And everybody looks forward to it. And right now, in this particular time, the way it's been, this is like the Super Bowl of paranormal conferences or cryptid conferences. You're bouncing your head around. Name something that's bigger, has more draw that people from all over come to.
I have heard that.
I know where you're going with this one.
What? There's a Pacific Northwest Bigfoot Conference and a Texas Bigfoot Conference.
Yeah, they are huge.
Yes.
But when we've looked at doing those events, because we do that too, and we'll explain, they did not have Finding Bigfoot.
That's true.
And mountain monsters there at the same time.
One of them didn't. We can't say that for both of them.
Well, yeah. I guess my point is, let's just do it like this, since we're going to split hairs with the whole thing, because there is actually a UFO in the desert type event that's huge, where it's like, oh, come on in, pay your $400 a ticket.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not talking that. These are actually affordable.
Yeah.
I mean, because there are events like that where you go and you pay your anywhere between $300 and $500 a ticket to go interact with people, But this is not that. This is like you're going to show up and pay your little money and go see these people, and you can bring your kids and you can have a good buy T-shirt. It's not.
You can get pictures with people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As you should be able to do.
It's fun.
Yeah, it was a fun event. There was all sorts of stuff going on. So, now we go and we attend these events. So we're going to give you a little bit of our origin story, if you will, as to why we do these conferences as vendors and how that affects the CreepGeeks Podcast. Okay, so once upon a time, the CreepGeeks Podcast used to be known as the Turquoise and Beef Jerky Roadshow. I still think that's the best name for a podcast you could ever have.
Yes.
Because we were in the Southwest, and we were out, and we were basically going and taking pictures and experiencing things, and this thing started to get a little strange with us, but we thought it was all interesting. We thought it was great. And, one of the things that you need to do in the Southwest is you need to, of course, sample the beef jerky, because it is different and delicious and turquoise.
Yes.
I mean, that's pretty much, if you had to pick a color of the Southwest, right, it's going to be turquoise.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to jewelry, silver and turquoise. So we thought the Turquoise and Beef Jerky Roadshow was a fantastic name. We got to talk about whatever we wanted to, and weird stuff and things like that, sort of dipping our toe into the paranormal. Well, come to find out, podcasting is hard. And when you think you're clever, you and your small circle of friends will also think you're clever, but people that don't know you probably won't.
Yes. So instead, we had the occasional people tuning in who were rock nerds like me, or genuine foodies that wanted to know about beef jerky.
Yeah, we had rock nerds and jerky people angry with us because we weren't actually talking about and devoting hours to turquoise and or beef jerky.
Yes, and they're like, what is this whole episode
You did not talk about dried meat, not one time.
What's this whole episode about
Thumbs
the big
down.
chief in New Mexico?
Yeah. So after a while, we decided to go with and rename the podcast and put it out there because what we found is that we are creep geeks. We like creepy stuff and we have a little bit of a tech edge to us.
Yeah.
You know, when it comes to photography and things like that. And so we went with Creep Geeks. And primarily that shift happened because we would take these little weekend adventures in New Mexico primarily. We would get in our camper van and we would drive anywhere between 25 and 250 miles to go to a place to primarily take pictures and have a good time. And we would stay overnight, experience more of the location that we're at, and drive back.
Yeah.
And that was great because we got to stay overnight because camping and boondocking and doing all the hipster, cool van life stuff is really easy to do in the Southwest, primarily in New Mexico as we're talking to. But we didn't get back to the house on Sunday, wore out, knowing that you have to work hard all week.
Yeah.
The following week. So having a camper van and being able to experience some things with a little bit more of a relaxed sort of perspective of not having to worry about driving back 200 miles was great. And we started having these experiences, and we thought since the Southwest is weird in general, because it is a weird sort of place compared to the East Coast, that's just how it is. It's normal to have weird experiences. Well, come to find out that is not the case at all.
And half these beautiful places that we as turquoise and beef jerky and as travel enthusiasts, these places we were exploring that were off the beaten path or unique or just stumbled upon, it would turn out, we'd find out when we got back from our trip or if we were talking to friends, these places were either highly paranormal or high strangeness or very weird or you just don't go there.
Yeah. Or why did you go there?
Yeah.
Nobody goes there.
I mean,
don't stay there.
Yeah.
So, and a lot of times we found this out after the fact, and we had our experiences, and we've talked about them previously in the podcast, you know. So it just turned into a thing, and the natural progression for us was to go from Turquoise and Beef Jerky Roadshow to Creep Geeks Paranormal and Weird News, because we do like the paranormal weird stuff and the weird news that pops up because it's interesting, and we would have our own experiences.
Yeah.
And so we did the show, and that's what we've been doing ever since. So we've been basically Creep Geeks Podcast, right? Creep Geeks Paranormal and Weird News Podcast. Now, one of the things that we decided to do was sort of branch out and get a little bit more into it. And by into it, I mean the supernatural, the paranormal, the 14, you know, everything from UFOs, Bigfoot, ghosts, just weird stuff. We wanted to get more into it, and one way you can do that and get a concentrated dose of this stuff is to go attend a conference. Conferences,
events, you know, shows, things like that.
Yeah. You know, people have talks and discussions and stuff, and since they are basically topic, you know, centered towards the topic that you're there for, it's more concentrated. You get more of an idea of what's going on for whatever it is that you're looking into, whether it's UFOs or Sasquatch or cryptids or whatever, than if you're sitting there trying to go through all the fluff that's everything else, right? So
yeah, just going to it works for some people, but just going to like an anime convention or just a Main Street type event just to get your name out there like a business wasn't as effective.
Right.
So going to these events was...
We would go to these events, and what we found, and here's the secret for us, they cost money, right? So you go to these events, you've got to do your gas, your lodging, your food, all that sort of thing, and then you have to buy tickets to attend and all that. And it became quickly apparent to us that the best way that we could do these events, right, with some frequency to them is if we figured out a way that we could be a vendor.
Yeah.
Because we talk to vendors while we're there. Because sometimes the person that you're talking to is a person who has written that book that you're interested in or is on that show that you're interested in.
Yeah.
or is a researcher that you've seen on things like Ancient Aliens and heard them on
Or
Coast to Coast AM or other places like that, or on the internet or on YouTube. That,
a known Bigfoot or UFO alien abductee experiencer.
Right, an experiencer, And so we realized really quickly at one such event that we paid a bunch of money for VIP tickets. We're talking over $300. But the famous person we were talking to, right, said, well, hey, these tables that you could be a vendor here, the table's only $75. And so I did some really quick math. I was like, wait a minute. Hotel room, eating, not 5-star dinners or anything like that, but, hotel room, eating, gas, and everything equaled our VIP ticket price and did not count. So I'm like, wow, $75 plus this, man, this is much more doable.
Yeah.
And so that's what we started to do. And plus, sometimes looking at $35 T-shirts, just, sort of, I'm like, man, I already paid $350 for us just to get in here. Do you want a T-shirt? It's like going to a concert or something, right? You're like, oh, let me go ahead and pick up this $35 T-shirt. So we decided to become vendors to do a couple different things for us. To be able to put us into the place where we can talk to these people and get some more knowledge, because knowledge is power, right? Mm-hmm. Also, to be able to recoup some of the loss, because anytime you travel and you don't get anything out of it, it's a loss.
Yeah. Recoup
some of the loss of travel and trying to feed this endeavor that we're on. It made sense. And then plus, doing like, let's make this as easy as we can. And we sort of turned into a thing where, boom, one of the conferences we went to, we showed up and we had stickers and patches and knickknacks and stuff like that. And it completely covered our expense. And it allowed us to go to a couple other different places and sort of keep doing this sort of thing. And that's what we've done.
Yeah.
And
and it's also a good chance, like, yes, meeting famous people and stuff, but you also get to network with other vendors and artists.
Yeah.
Which works out in the future should you decide to grow or you need help from the community.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you get to talk to people. People will come up and tell you stuff.
Yeah.
And I've heard some just, some seriously, like, super crazy stuff. And they don't want you to say it, but, it was good.
Yeah.
And so, that's what we started doing. So we started doing these vendor events, and we did a bunch of them, and we got to the point where we know most everyone.
Yeah.
And if we don't know them well enough to send them an email, they know us by sight. And so when you wave to them, they recognize you, they wave back.
Yeah.
At least. Now, over time, we've gotten to know people pretty well to the point where it's like, hugs and kisses and everything. That kind of thing. And so it was good. I mean, we in 2020, we did 30.
No, 2019.
I mean, 2019, we did like almost 30. And in 2020, I think we did 2. It's a busy year.
2019, we did almost 2 events a month, and we had started late in the season. We didn't even start until April.
Yeah.
Yeah, almost April.
And it took a lot for us to get to the point where we're like, you know what, we're going to do it.
Yeah.
So it turned into a thing. So anyway, we get to meet a lot of people. We know a lot of people. And for us going to Cryptidcon, because it didn't happen in 2020 because nobody really did anything in 2020. And you all know why.
Yeah.
We got to go back. And I was shocked at the people that we seen in 2019 that knew us and came over and talked to us.
Yeah.
And in a couple occasions where I was outside talking to certain people, we picked up the conversation that we had last time. And I was like, and I was talking to the dude, and he was like, man, it's hard to believe, almost 3 years has passed.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, man, that's nuts. So going and doing these conferences and events lets us meet people, lets us meet the famous people, lets us experience things, get stories, and just, usually it's a pretty good time.
And so,
I mean, there's a lot of work involved. I don't want to sell it short. Like, you just show up, pop a tablecloth down, throw some business cards out, and off you go. It's way more involved than that. However, you could do that.
Yeah, there are people who do that, like authors and stuff.
Yeah.
They'll throw the card down.
And the next time you see them, they throw the card down and a pile of books because they're like, yeah, it's expensive.
Yeah.
Especially if you got to fly in from somewhere. Like one dude flew in from Alaska.
Yeah.
I mean, that's I don't know how much it costs. I'm just assuming that it's expensive, but everything, because I watched the TikTok video. This lady was like, do you know why we hunt our own food in Alaska? And she shows a steak, like a roast. Mm-hmm. She's like, this little 2-pound roast here is $142.
Bananas are $17, and they're not even fresh. They're like
I don't like
old.
a banana that much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So obviously we did all these events in 2019. We were on track to continue doing these events and growing the podcast. But we all know 2020, there was a lot of stuff that happened. So we only did 2 events in 2020, and they turned out okay. We wanted to do more, but 2020.
Things were canceled.
Yeah.
It just became a thing.
So we fast forward to 2021, and things are still hit or miss. There were some events, there weren't some events, but there were 2 that we could count on, and that was Wild and Weird and then Cryptidcon.
Yeah.
So
now we also did Smoky Mountain Bigfoot as well.
Yeah.
But, so it is what it is. It's been a little crazy for everybody. And a lot of people did events and a lot of people didn't. But this time we chose to take the tact of we're not trying to do every small event out there.
We're going to do the important ones.
Yeah, we're going to try to do the big ones because the idea was that the big ones would happen.
Yeah.
And for the most part, they did. So, all right. So this particular section of the podcast is called Wild Bill's Clock, as per what's in the title that we have there. And this is a story about Wild Bill from Mountain Monsters.
Okay.
It's kind of a weird thing. It's sort of a circular deal. But it turns into how small the paranormal world really is. Okay?
Yeah.
So Wild Bill is on Mountain Monsters. And, he's the ex-Marine. Actually, I'm not sure if he's retired, but, he's the Marine on the show, and he runs around and does his things, and ooh-ah and all that. And I like him. We've seen him many times. I've talked to him many times. Good guy. Okay. So we know Wild Bill from attending events and basically cracking jokes and stuff. Well, during 2020, things got silent and people stopped doing events and things were canceled and all that sort of thing. And we kind of rolled into 2021 not knowing exactly how many we were going to do, but we decided to do at least the big ones. And during this time frame, somehow, some way, it turned into, let's make some clocks and bring them to these events because my dad has started making clocks, right?
Yeah.
Excuse me. So we had these clocks and everything was good. Well, out of the blue, my cousin who lives in West Virginia and her husband, who also lives in West Virginia, brought my dad a motorcycle.
Okay.
Which is cool. Well, come to find out that my cousin in West Virginia and her husband in West Virginia and this motorcycle are neighbors to Wild Bill.
Wow.
From Mountain Monsters.
Small world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Excuse me. So they brought in the motorcycle. They drove, brought it from basically West Virginia to North Carolina to deliver it to my dad, and conversation got struck up about Mountain Monsters and stuff like that and the cryptid stuff that we do. And my dad decided he wanted to make Wild Bill a service clock for his military service. And so my dad knows that we do these events, that kind of thing. And it turned into, you need to take this clock and give it to Wild Bill.
Hadn't he seen a clock that your cousin had or something?
I don't remember exactly what the deal was.
So,
because it sort of turned into a thing. Dad was looking for some hobby type activities to do because we've all been a little weird for 2020, and it just turned into a thing. And he's like, I'm going to make Wild Bill a clock.
Yeah, mid-service clocks and Bigfoot clocks. Yeah.
So, we were tasked with delivering this clock whenever we seen Wild Bill to give it to Wild Bill. Now, we had events that we were going to that got canceled, and it just turned into a thing. And then I was thinking, man, we're probably going to end the year with not being able to deliver this clock.
Yeah.
Because there were events that were happening that canceled like almost at the last minute. Like Mothman didn't happen. I think they pulled the trigger too early on that.
Yeah.
That's just me. For the Mothman Festival, I should say, that's in Point Pleasant, West Virginia.
The Western North Carolina, a.k.a. Marion Bigfoot Festival, that got canceled the week of.
Yeah. And, we get it. We get why people were canceling events because the states were breathing down. It was a thing, all right?
There's a couple in Tennessee that we had signed up for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we were lucky enough to be able to be doing Cryptidcon And so we brought the clock and we actually went to Cryptidcon. And we also got lucky enough just to be sitting in the same general area as Mountain Monsters.
Yeah.
And we didn't ask. It just sort of worked up that way. I'm like, well, that's going to be even easier because they're going to be sitting over there talking to people like they do, and we're going to be able to run over and just drop off this clock. So we get to Cryptidcon. We get set up. It's hectic. It's crazy. It's a lot of people. And I'm thinking, man, this is going to be kind of nuts because there was a ton of people just walking around that had nothing to do with vendors and setting up for Cryptidcon. Right?
Yeah.
So once we got set up and everything, the next day we're doing our thing. It's, it looked like it wasn't going to be busy, but then all of a sudden it got busy and people started showing up, and I'm like, this is going to be cool because there was a lot of interested people there, enthusiastic people there to learn all about cryptids or pick their favorites, whether it's mountain monsters or finding Bigfoot or ghosts or UFOs or whatever. So it was nice. Right?
Yeah.
It was good. And then, we seen Bill. He come cruising by. You seen him.
Yeah.
And you said, hey, I think you said, what did you say? Hey, Mr. Wild Bill?
No, you say that stuff.
Yeah. Hey, Mr. Wild Bill. No, but you're like, hey, we have something for you. And we tried to explain it real quick because these guys, they're on a schedule.
Yeah.
And, and I gave him the clock. I said, look, this is from my dad and all this stuff. And he liked it a lot. And, he went back to doing his thing. And we went back to selling stickers to people that,
and coffee.
yeah, well, yeah, we sold a bunch of stuff, like stickers and coffee and things like that because we do have coffee. It's delicious. Anyway, he came back by again, and I had to explain it to him again. Like, what's the deal? Because he didn't.
Yeah.
It was kind of a thing where I'm like, hey, my cousin, your neighbors, knows my dad, bought him a motorcycle. I wanted to explain it to him so he
Very
got the
Appalachia explanation.
Yeah, and he came back. So, all right, explain this to me one more time. And I said, okay, so my cousin is your neighbor. When they brought my dad a motorcycle, they started talking about clocks, and he made a clock for me to give to you. And he said, you need to give Wild Bill this clock. So that's what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And then so he understood. We took some pictures. He
held Pepper.
Yeah, I'm like, I hate to do this to you, but I got to have evidence, Wild Bill. I got to have evidence that I gave you this clock. So we took some pictures. He held Pepper. It was great because Pepper's our dog, our paranormal Pepper. Pepper, the paranormal pupper. So yeah, we took some pictures, and I'm thinking, you know what? Regardless of what happens out of this entire Cryptidcon experience, this thing has been checked off my list. We're good.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to get it done and make sure it happened. We met the guys again later on. We'll tell you about that in just a second. But it was good.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I'd like to impart to people that are listening to this podcast, if you're still listening after 27 minutes and 42 seconds, if you have the opportunity to go to a con and spend your $5 or $10 to get in the door to go see, you should go. Because it's not what you think it is. And when I say, let's be specific. I should say like a Cryptidcon or a Bigfoot festival or something like that. Anime and stuff like that, man, if you're not into it, it's weird. For me personally, but you should go because you never know who you're going to meet. Because the secret of the whole thing is that the people that you meet there that you want to go see, the star or whatever, the draw to the convention or conference that you're at, they're generally pretty nice people.
Yeah.
And most of them understand that the reason why they're there, being able to do what they do, is because of you if you go.
So go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, what else are you going to do on a rainy Saturday or Sunday in Kentucky?
Hunt Bigfoot.
No, you're not. It's cold, man. It's happened in November. It's like right before Turkey Day.
True.
It's wet and cold. I'm not going out in the woods. That's how you get sick.
Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, that's what we did. We got rid of the clock, and I don't mean that. And I mean we got it delivered.
We got it to its proper owner.
Yeah,
yes.
And life was good. So that's pretty much the story of Wild Bill's clock. Now it does come back to us again in a way because I didn't give him a battery because for some reason I couldn't find the battery. Went outside and looked for it, looked everywhere, and the battery was right there in the box. It's just a weird sort of thing. So
yeah,
we did wind up seeing Wild Bill a couple different times later on. Right, he came back by on his way by. He chatted every time, stopped and yucked it up with us a little bit. Seen him at dinner, came over and talked to us and yucked it up a little bit. Seen him at breakfast, the same thing, yucked it up and talked to us. And he came by during breakfast time. He's like, I remember you, man, from these events. And he goes, I knew you from somewhere.
Because you guys crack the same military jokes to each other
every
each
time.
Event.
No, because basically.
Each one.
Yeah. And he remembered that. And that's why he was like, I like you guys, And so it was good. And we had a good time. And from doing these events and stuff in the past and meeting them, now we know these guys. We know at least 3 of the mountain monsters, right? Mm-hmm. So it's kind of turned into a thing with us. So we meet these people and we like these people. And we go back and we see them. And with that being said, as a podcast, you should be interviewing the stars that are there. Right?
Yeah.
We did not do that not one time. The entire thing.
Yeah.
And here's the reason why. And I don't feel bad about it. I probably should, but I don't. We seen people that we know, and everybody was happy to see each other.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so it was like, it wasn't we were just there, it was like, oh, man, there's Seth Breedlove. What's up, Seth? How are you doing? We seen all these people that we know, and then we were just like catching up with friends, and everybody was hanging out and chatting a little bit and yucking it up.
Like a good example is, Cryptidcon 2019. We were lucky enough to interview Seth Breedlove. But we also had the chance to talk to people like Dr. Jeff Meldrum and some other famous people that we admire on TV and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But our conversation with Dr. Jeff Meldrum was rescue dogs.
Right.
Not an interview.
Right.
I sat there and talked to him for like 15 minutes about rescue dogs.
Yeah.
And training dogs and stuff like that.
Well, I mean, okay, so let's throw Lyle Blackburn in the mix because not only does he have a cool hat, he's a generally cool guy, right? What did you talk to Lyle about?
Journalism.
Yeah. And I think with Ken Gearhart, it was about Texas. Talking about Texas and looking for chupacabra and stuff like that.
Yeah, it was.
But it wasn't about finding chupacabra. It was about Texas and how it looks like the Southwest and how all these geographical stuff.
And showing him the photos from New Mexico power companies about how remains become brittle enough to blow up during wind season. Yeah. And showing him pictures of not only tumbleweeds, but like coyote remains blown up into the power lines.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so
not an interview at all,
and that's been pretty much kind of what's been happening to us every time we do an event. We see people that we know, like Stan Gordon. We talked to Stan Gordon, talked about, what did we talk about? Oh, organizing and packing up for events and different ways to move things around and some other stuff. And what's a good place
where to get the best cart for events.
Yeah, and you know what? It's funny because a lot of people be like, why didn't you talk to Stan Gordon about Kecksburg and other UFO type stuff and all that? Having a decent cart to be able to lug 100 pounds of stuff to set up for an event, be able to break it down and get it to your car without dumping stuff everywhere, it's a thing. Yeah. We all had to do it. We all do it, right? Also where to get a really good sandwich. And he told me, and I can't remember. So we've done these events and we've had conversations with people completely not
get to interview them,
not about what they do. And a lot of them like that. Well, what did you talk to Geraldine? What's her last name?
Geraldine Sutton Smith.
Sutton Smith.
Yeah.
When you talked about when we were there, okay, so she's Kelly Hopkinsville and the Hopkinsville Goblins.
Yeah.
Or the little green men. We didn't talk about that stuff with her either.
No, we didn't. Oh, I talked about her little aliens that she started making.
Yeah, about, sculpture and art and things like that and some of the stuff that she was doing, and she was totally into it.
Yeah.
About the art side of things and sculpture and jewelry and all those.
Okay, so Cryptidcon 2021, I finally got to meet Alexander Pedikov.
Yeah.
And he's a big part of, he's an independent filmmaker person, also works with Small Town Monsters. But I've been a fan of him because he's one of those people that takes the camera out there. He takes it to the places we used to go in New Mexico or remote places where there has been high strangeness or reported cryptid activity. But he takes that stuff himself, because I'm all about hiking and stuff. So to meet somebody who actively does that and is outdoorsy, perfect person for me to finally interview.
Yeah.
Right over my head. Instead, we talked about Pepper for like 10 minutes.
Well, that was the thing, too, because when we were at Cryptidcon in 2019, Pepper became, like, kind of famous. She's hanging out, having spirited conversation with Bobo and who else was there? Cliff was there.
That was a 2019 one.
That's what I just said, yeah. And also the guys that head up the Kentucky Bigfoot.
Yeah.
And they're talking about, cast and size and interactions that they've all been having and all that sort of thing. And Pepper's in the middle of them getting scratches from each one of them. They're chatting it up, and they reach down and give her a little pet. And she's just sitting there the whole time. And that's what's kind of what it turned into.
Yeah. So this one turned into the same thing. Yeah,
and she was, like, with 2019, she was hanging out with mountain monsters. She was over, getting love off of them and stuff, which was kind of weird, but, it's cool. And she met all these people, right?
Yeah.
And it just sort of has turned into a thing. And, I mean, Nick Groff spent some time scratching on her. Heather Taddy, same thing. Spent time,
So for since she met all those famous people in 2019... we've kind of taken it a step further and started getting pictures of her with people.
That's because we weren't smart enough to do that in 2019. Hey, can we get a picture of you scratching on our dog? And
like, Hillbilly Horror Stories.
Yeah.
They love her.
Yeah.
And so do a lot of people. And, like, this time we were like, okay, this time we're going to get a picture. And it's funny because the one person she has the most pictures with is Seth Breedlove from Small Town Monsters. Well,
Seth's cool, man. He came over and he was like, hey, can I borrow your dog? And I was like, yeah, man. I was real nice about
it. you were not.
No, I was. I said, if you lose my dog, I will kill you.
But
hey, it didn't happen. And, Seth's a good guy. I like Seth a lot. And I trust him, but I just, that's just kind of one of those things. You have to say it.
Don't worry, he says that to everybody. So.
There you go. Now you just made me out like I threaten everybody with death.
Oh, no.
Yes, you just did. And I don't do that. But, hey, Pepper's precious Pepper, paranormal Pepper. So anyway, so he took her for a while, and he got some great pictures of, So he went out and took pictures with her and other famous people. It's like he's doing a good job. So Pepper is a rare dog. As in her temperament, she will sit in a chair at the booth or the table and, greet you when you come by. And she's just a real mellow chick, man. So
she's
it's
a good girl.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So she got to meet a lot of people. She met Wild Bill, right? Mm-hmm. Of course, Breedlove took her for a while. So she was hanging out with all the small town monsters. So the new people there's so many people, and if you're listening to the podcast and you were there at Cryptidcon and you have interacted with us and we have forgotten you, it is not intentional, not at all. I just want to say that.
I've had to stress that. I'm like,
because Omi has made a link list in this podcast show notes of 32 vendors that we know,
and I'm sitting here and I'm like, I know I'm missing 5 of them.
Yeah,
at least 5 people.
Yeah, that
we like directly interacted with.
Yeah.
But there were, like we were saying, we met a bunch of new people. We've met people that we've always wanted to meet, like Finding Bigfoot. Pepper has her photo with Renee. She's got her photo with Matt
Moneymaker and
Cliff and the guys from the Kentucky Bigfoot that are opening the museum.
Yeah.
Great guy. Realized I've talked to him at the 2019 one, talked to him at Smoky Mountain, and talked to him at this one.
Yeah. I was out talking to him outside.
Yeah.
So he's like, hey, man. I'm like, hey, dude, what's going on? We started talking. Yeah. And the funny thing is that we've gotten to the point where we know these people on site and we can have conversations and stuff. And sometimes when you look around and you see like regular people, like attendees attending this thing and they're looking to see these, famous people.
Yeah.
And they see you just yucking it up. They're like, whoa, you must be important. And you're like, yes, I am important.
No, we just
you should listen to the podcast. That's Pepper. No, but I mean, so it was fun. We've had conversations and things like that. And one of the people I was excited to talk to was Renee from Finding Bigfoot.
Yeah.
And only because, 2020, I was pretty much housebound for most of 2020. And we, in New Mexico, we didn't do cable television. And if we had fast internet, which we do not have at all, we wouldn't have cable because we streamed everything. We'd cut the cord since 2008 is really what it boiled down to. But being sort of kind of housebound in 2020 and having access to cable television, as in satellite TV, I spent a good chunk of the year watching all these paranormal shows, including all the Finding Bigfoots.
Yep.
You know, like I was shocked and amazed that they went to the Four Corners area, and they also spent some time in New Mexico in a really sort of heavily active Sasquatch area, which is exactly the same place. I mean, to the foot, where we camped a lot and always had weird stuff happen to us, but we just thought it was people.
You can go back to our Facebook page and go back into the archives because I merged pages. So they should be able to see the photos of where we camped in Jimenez.
Nice.
Yeah. So there's spots where we camped, and you go back to these older Finding Bigfoot episodes, and they're interviewing Bobo right in front of a place where we had the camper van parked.
Yeah.
Or they're interviewing...
And had weird experiences there.
Yeah.
And
or Cliff's talking and walking through an area where Greg was making coffee, you know? It's like...
And so, and as a side to that, we got to talk to him a little bit about that. And I think it was funny, Matt Moneymaker kind of threw you a little test to see if you kind of knew. But anyway, and you knew. And after that, he was like, okay, this person knows what they're talking about. And I get why you need to kind of do stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Well, one of the people I was excited to talk to was Renee.
Yeah.
Because she came by. She took some pictures with Pepper and all that stuff, and she came cruising by. And I forgot what I said to her. It wasn't anything crazy. We talked a little bit about New Mexico, but I told her that being housebound and sitting in the wheelchair for 2020, I got to watch the show and stuff, and I appreciated the way that when they went to certain places and documented things. I just basically I told her that I appreciated the way she was handling her thing, and that anyway, with the show being the way it is, it sort of portrayed her as being a super hardcore skeptic and didn't believe in anything else but pure science, which nobody can be exactly like that. But we did talk about some of the native aspect of things with, the elders and lore and things like that. She's really into it. So I was excited to talk to her because I'd already talked to Cliff. I've already talked to Bobo.
Yeah.
I didn't talk to Matt, but that's okay.
That's because she doesn't normally do these events. In fact, in the early days of Finding Bigfoot, when it was like really picking up traction and stuff, and I think she maybe did one or two events in general, and I think they were out west.
Yeah.
So this was like her first Cryptidcon, and I want to say her first event out here in the east.
Yeah, well, I hope she had a good time. She was real nice, and it was
super
fun to
sweet.
talk to her.
She played with Pepper twice.
Yeah.
And we did thank her for holding Pepper correctly. That's important.
Okay, I didn't know. Yeah, that's cool. Didn't know it was a thing. So, to kind of ramble on a little bit. So, yeah, we got to meet a bunch of people and meet people that were old friends from these conferences that became new friends again. And it was just an overall good time. Got to, talk to people in a way where you get to know them personally, I guess, or their personalities, or, because everybody has, the thing about shows and things like that is they portray you a certain way, and that may not be who you actually are in real life. And getting to know a lot of these folks was nice because you're like, wow, okay, these people they're real people.
I think we spent 15 minutes basically saying these people are down to earth and they're good people to talk to.
Yeah. It's funny because, like, when you have some people that you just don't like, and I don't mean me, I just mean, like, in general. You see them on a show, and you're like, oh, I don't like that person, right?
Yeah.
But then you meet them, and you're like, okay, maybe I was wrong. Maybe the show is doing that, And one of those people who is a real nice guy in real life, that when you see him out, like, on these shows and stuff, you think he's not, is Nick Groff.
Yeah.
In 2019, he was hanging out, talking to Pepper and is yucking it up with everybody and stuff, and it's like, wow. On some of these shows, you're kind of portrayed in a way where you might come off.
I'll tell you
a little douchey.
When you broke your neck, and we had to reach out to Cryptidcon because everything was up in the air. He actually wrote us back directly, I think.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, nice guy.
Yeah, very nice, and it's just was okay. So we're kind of going on with this Cryptidcon thing, and that's because we were there. But the idea behind it is that we decided to start attending these conferences and events as a way to meet and talk to some of these people. And so far, we have basically talked to nobody at all about what they're there for. which is, could be seen as a complete failure, but it's kind of not, because it's kind of nice having them come up to us and say, hey, man, how's it going? Haven't seen you, man. You doing all right? That kind of thing.
Yeah.
And the thing is that now we know.
But there are people that I feel like we should have interviewed, and I hope next year we get a chance to actually interview. You know?
It's funny you bring it up. It's like Jerry. This is the second time Jerry
from Hillbilly Horror Stories.
Hillbilly Horror Stories gave me his card. Yeah. He was like, "Hey, man, you need to use this so we can get you guys on the show." I'm like, "Oh yeah," and it's kind of one of those things. So, with that being said, we are going to start doing that more, I think, in a way that makes sense. But a big part of the issue that we've had, and I'm not saying that this is the primary reason why we don't do this sort of thing, is our internet really is. We've
Trash.
been on and this is going out to Elon Musk. If you're listening to the CreepGeeks podcast, come on, man. We have been on the waiting list since February 2nd.
Really?
Yeah, and it kept saying, "Hey, Starlink's coming in your area, mid to late 2021." And we've been waiting. We've been seeing all these other countries and stuff with their little cells opening up and all this other crazy stuff. And we've been seeing the chip shortage and all this crazy stuff. But no. Now, recently we've got an email from Starlink saying, hey, now coverage is projected in your area mid to late 2022. Now, I'm glad they informed us that things are not going the way that they, predicted, because of, like I said, chip shortages and all sorts of other crazy stuff. But when you get an email from Starlink, you're like, yes, this is my order confirmation. My deposit has gone into an order status. They're going to want $400 more for the setup and the kit to get that delicious, super fast internet to, oh, hey, coverage in your area is going to be maybe mid to late next year. But look at all the things that we've done.
Look at all the other countries.
Yeah, and I'm like, why would you put a list of all these other countries that have service now that I don't?
Yeah.
Like, why would you do that? Oh, and by the way, we have version 2.0 of our Dishy satellite equipment. I don't care. I want it.
And if you go on Reddit, you find out that other people in our general region have already gotten Starlink.
Yeah, and it's this thing about, so, hey, it is a little lemons, little bitter thing.
But it makes...
We don't have, it's terrible. We live in a bowl, and we don't even have cell phone service at the house, our underground bunker.
Yes.
We would have to build a 200-foot tower, I think, to actually, literally.
I have to walk a quarter of a mile to attend Zoom meetings.
Yes.
Without, going into town. That's how bad it is.
Yeah, because once you leave here, you got to drive like 12 miles.
As podcasters and content creators, what we're trying to say is it's hard to connect and reconnect with some of the people we've met. Where we've got goals to kind of make it happen in 2022.
Yeah.
So we're working on it. It's just...
Yeah, primarily what we did was took our camper van and we added the ability to live stream. As long as we have cell phone service, we can live stream. We have a desk to work from. We put cameras and things like that to be able to do investigations. And it's a thing. I don't want to give away too much, because when I get it all done, we're going to do a little video, and you can be completely underwhelmed at the amount of effort we put into doing this. Right. And I'm not saying we didn't put any effort into it. We put a tremendous amount of effort. We have solar. We have multiple ways of power. We can show up and do an investigation on site. We can do an investigation from the van. We can do all this stuff because multi-purpose, what did I call it? A multiple investigation platform. I forgot. I gave it a spiffy little nickname called MIP. So if you're ever in a parking lot somewhere and you see a network that says CreepGeeks MIP, that's us. And you won't be able to log into my network because I have a password, because this is not, 1990. Yeah. We had
a couple of attendees actually stop by the booth, always when you weren't there, to ask about all the upgrades. Well,
that's my trick.
Yeah.
I leave when there's nobody at the table coming up to us, like a lull in the people that are visiting, that kind of thing. Lull in the people, and as soon as I step away, you just get inundated. And you sell a bunch of stickers and stuff, which turns into cheeseburgers for me later on.
Yeah, but we had people asking interesting questions about some of the gear we've put on the van to help with investigations, things like cameras and stuff like that, and solar. And I'm like, maybe if you check our other channel, Cheap Geek, you might learn a little bit about it.
Yeah.
Because I can only tell you what I can read from our Amazon order history.
Yeah. Like one guy was like, well, how do you check your solar charge controller to see? Bluetooth, bro. It's all Bluetooth.
Yeah.
You know, stuff like that. And the funny thing is that when I put those kind of videos on my other channel, right, the Cheap Geek channel, nobody cares.
Yeah.
So you're thinking, cool, I'm going to put this stuff on, our CreepGeeks YouTube channel, and guess what? Nobody cares.
I know.
It's a weird thing.
But speaking of people who stopped by the booth, we did have a lot of cool people that stopped by, including, like you were saying earlier, Mountain Monsters stopped by.
Yeah. Wild and Weird came by.
Well, yeah.
Hellbent Jesse came by. Cryptid Comforts came by.
Yeah. And then
it just goes on and on.
And I went out. But one thing with Mountain Monsters, I think Buck stopped by.
Yeah.
And was interested in
Buck's a nice guy. I like Buck.
Interested
like
in
Bill
some of the
too,
stuff I had brought, because normally we bring our stickers and some of our podcast swag.
Yeah.
And our coffee.
I like to give stuff away to the kids,
Yeah.
so I don't feel bad giving them a sticker. You know what I mean?
But this time I also tried to bring some of the Crafted Intent stuff. And if you don't know about Crafted Intent, that is my Etsy shop where I sell imbued and intention handmade jewelry and other things.
Yeah.
And I believe Buck, he kind of zoned in on this one piece I had made, which was very Appalachia, because it was...
Don't say what it is.
Okay.
Don't take the juice away from his piece.
But, yeah, it was very specific to the region, so I was really glad that got picked out.
He came by when you were gone.
Mm-hmm.
Which freaked me out, because you have stuff that's not, I can say stuff's $1. You have stuff that's like, if I sold it for $1, then, we would no longer be married, because the amount of cost and the effort that goes into it, and using real stones and all that sort of thing. And, so I was like, look, dude, I don't know. You got to come back, because, and I told him, if I sell something to you at the wrong price, you may get a bargain, and I may get divorced. And he's like, I got you, man. I'll come back. And I'm like, okay. And then when you came back, I'm like, hey, he came by, and he's probably not going to come back, so you might have to go talk to him.
Yeah.
But he came back, and then the explanation was made of how to make sure the sort of the care and feeding of this imbued object. And he followed and listened to the directions and stuff. So I thought that was great, and that was his piece, because out of everything on this table, that's the one thing he kept looking at.
Yeah.
Which is funny, because there was another lady, a vendor lady, came by because she wanted the same one. So for whatever reason, those two people were tuned in.
And it's funny, because that particular piece had a sister piece.
Yeah, they were exactly the same.
Except for one had larger pieces of kyanite, which, if that vendor lady is not from Appalachia, it may not call to her as much. So that was weird. And then within the first 10 minutes of Cryptidcon starting, I want to thank the Cryptidcon staff who ran up, said, I've seen this bracelet all over Instagram. I am giving you them. I have to get this now.
Yeah.
And I was just like, thank you so much. She actually bought the Dulce Underground alien base bracelet I made.
So if you don't know, that Omi makes these bracelets that have a theme, and the stones and everything that's involved with these bracelets, are part of something. So it's not like, let me just slap something together. It's like, this reminds, these altogether reminds me of, underground military base, Dulce, New Mexico.
Network Jasper, hand cast alien button, glow in the dark bead every other row.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She had Roswell bracelet and Route 66. So everything's got a theme, and they're one-off pieces, and they're amazing. So
a Hellbent Jessie stopped by, and as soon as she saw the Ouija ones, she started asking really good questions, like, which one does this? Which one does this? She's like, I need one that's seriously into protection, because I told her, some of these just have this, but this one has carnelian. She's like, that one. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah. And so the intent behind it and what it can do for you is, part of it. And, there's a lot of people don't understand, and there's people that do understand. The people that do understand are the ones that get something that's great for them. The people that don't understand will turn around and go, and not, they'll get a $1 sticker. And so, and it's okay. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of a line that we walk, because people, they come up and they see the stickers or whatever for like a nickel, and they're like, oh, these guys are just, whatever, they're yucking it up. Oh, you guys have a podcast? It's like, yeah, we've been doing this for a couple of years. We got some episodes. We kind of know what we're talking about. We're not here to take your money for a $20 to $30 t-shirt or whatever. We kind of have in other words, appearances, man. You may think to the normal eye, we just look like a bunch of, yucksters, right? To people that know, they know.
I still think we're a bunch of yucksters.
Well, yeah, always. But it was kind of nice because we were on the podcast panel, because Cryptidcon had a podcast panel where there's some amazing people up on this podcast panel, so that you, if you were there as an attendee at Cryptidcon, could come up and ask, some questions to the podcast panel. Like Micah Hanks was there.
Jeff from Sasquatch Tracks.
Yeah, Jeff from Sasquatch.
All of Sasquatch Tracks was there.
Squatch was there. I can't remember that dude's name. He's super cool, which just went right out of my head. He came in from Alaska. Midnight Kentucky was there. Who else was there?
Manic Pixie Dream Girls, Strangeology, Moth Boys, Hillbilly Horror Stories. Yep. I know I'm forgetting somebody in the last row, and I'm like, because they had us lined up in front of everybody. And you can only crane your neck so far to look down.
And my neck doesn't turn at all. So there's probably people up on that panel thought I was just ignoring them. And it's like, that is not the case.
Yeah.
Did watch Micah Hanks get full tongue kiss from Pepper.
Oh.
Which is, I'm sure he enjoyed that. So we answered some questions and stuff. And there's, you've got podcasters, man, that are up there that are pretty serious business.
Yeah.
And then, we did our little... kind of thing. It's funny because a lot of them are like, we take this very seriously, and then we're like, we don't take this as seriously as these guys do. Because we want to have a little fun with it.
But we take it slightly more serious than these guys.
Yeah. So when you hear like, oh, you guys are just yucking it up, I'm like, no, man, we know what time it is.
Yeah.
So, but it was good. And when that ended, we got to sit there and we actually chatted up with other podcasters. And I was shocked at, these guys coming up going, do we listen to your podcast? And I was like, really? Was it good? Was it a good one? Did you listen to the good one? No, it was cool because they were like, man, because we've been doing this for a minute. We haven't, this is not like, oh, we've got 10 episodes in, and we're on episode number 229, and we're not even counting a chunk of the Turquoise and Beef Jerky Roadshow podcast.
Oh, yeah. And then to sit there and give basically podcast advice, not just to like someone on the panel who asked a question, but people in the audience, a lot of the whole, just the aspects of podcasting.
Yeah.
Because in this community, podcasting is only going to grow. Everyone has the desire to at least podcast temporarily or do some sort of segment piece, whether it's a podcast or some form of content creation like YouTube. Everyone wants to get their message out there, and I completely understand that and support that in this community.
Yeah.
So it was a good experience. And then to have other people on the panel just interact or ask questions. Like me and Jeff sat there and he gave me all about Arkansas and I gave him leads on Brown Mountain and then Thomas Divide Overlook ghost lights.
Yeah.
And
which is funny because Micah Hanks is from Asheville, North Carolina, and he knows all that stuff too.
I know.
Like, why aren't you asking Micah,
But to give him leads on Thomas Divide was really nice because, we've been really heading some of the ghost light stuff out here. So to give that information to someone else who is a serious researcher, that was really, that made my day.
Yeah. It was fun.
So,
and I enjoyed talking to him, and it was a good time. Yeah. And so we got to yuck it up and talk to people, and, Pepper got her picture taken, which is nice, and plus it was great. I like talking to the small town monster guys with Seth Breedlove and everybody involved. Because there's a bunch of people involved with small town monsters, and all of them are talented and all of them are good.
Yeah.
So I really like talking and seeing them again because it was like, hey man, how's it going? Hey, what's going on with this? And I do like talking about things that are a little different than what you think that. Like I said, we've gone and talked to people in great and agonizing detail about things unrelated to the reason why they're there.
Yeah.
Anyway, I don't want to give things away because there are things that happen at these conferences and stuff that you probably should keep to yourself, And I'm not talking about anything bad or anything. I'm talking about oh man, I don't have any way to take money
Oh, yeah. Let me borrow your square reader
Yeah.
and never give it back.
Can I borrow your square? No, he gave it back.
We're missing part of our square reader.
Well, I think you lost that.
No, I did not.
Because it's not there. I do have a theory that I think somebody snatched it.
Oh.
So.
Okay. You might be right.
Yeah, I know I'm right. But joke's on him because we're geeks for a reason.
Yeah.
So you may have snatched my stripe reader, our stripe reader for Square. It's tied to me, bro. So if you want to take some money, go right ahead. And besides, what the guy doesn't realize is if you plug it in, you're going to have an account.
Yeah.
So anyway, because we do know the technical side of things. You know, we know cameras, we know podcasting, we know all that stuff. You know, we actually know social media as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was a thing.
So did you realize during the podcast panel, the Moth Boys didn't realize I was the one that handed them the Appalachia sticker?
No.
I did. They thought the Alice Squatch guy gave it to
Well,
him.
I handed it to him and said, can you make sure he gets it? So, yeah.
So I had
Because
to
he kept saying Appalachia.
Yeah.
It's Appalachia.
I had to let him know the next day. And I told him how, don't worry, I have like 3 of these in my wallet. One was for you guys. The other's for Lyle Blackburn.
Yeah.
And then I got one more as an emergency.
Yep, Appalachia.
Yeah. So
yeah, I enjoy talking to the Wild and Weird guys too because we just came from theirs and they're great people. So the people that do these things, they're usually
that's the other thing. Exclusive stuff happens at some of these conventions. Wild and Weird guys, really great guys. They brought these limited editions signed prints. The prints were signed by Bob Gimlin, and the artist was Wayne Barnes, which was a dear friend of theirs that passed away recently.
Yeah.
So they only brought this art to Cryptidcon, and it was a great opportunity to get a hold of some art that, there's going to be no more.
Yeah.
I
mean, because we were supposed to see Bob Gimlin a couple times.
Yes.
But, things happen. He's a little older, traveling.
Lisa mentioned Lisa from Cryptid Comforts, because she lives in that general area. She said the last event she went to, he was only there for a few hours, and he was tired.
And see, and this happened to us before. We were actually going to Dulce. There was a convention in Dulce. We were going to go meet Stanton Friedman.
Yeah.
And talk to Stanton because it was like, hey, I will buy a ticket just to go talk to Stanton Friedman, just to say, hey, look, out of all the people I've seen, I think if you told me that all of this was real, I'd believe you. If you told me that all of it was made up, I'd believe you.
Yeah.
Because I like Stanton Friedman a lot, I always thought, him and his crazy eyebrows, he was, anyway. And some people are going to, like him or not like him, whatever, who cares. But he passed away, unfortunately, before we had a chance to talk to him.
Yeah.
Because I have a list, and same thing with Rosemary Ellen Guiley.
Yeah. But we got to see Kevin Paul, who worked closely with her.
Yeah. So, he's a great guy. I like Kevin a lot.
Yeah.
And I'm sure he thinks we keep blowing him off for events in Pennsylvania, but that's not the case. Like the last one, he was like, hey, you guys should come up here, man. I'll get you set up. It'll be great. You can stay in your camper van. You can stay right there. I'm like, heck yeah, man. Broke my neck. Didn't go. You know what I mean? And he even sent us a thing.
The same could be said about Kyle.
Yeah.
Kyle Cadell from the International Paranormal Museum.
Yeah, in Kentucky. He's like, come on down, man. It'd be great. Get you set up. You can, heck yeah, dude, we're on the way. Broke my neck, didn't go. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like some things are meant to be, some things are not meant to be.
Yeah. And then this time, when we were supposed to go to Kyle's museum, they closed on Mondays. And he was actually staying in
yeah, he's like, oh, guys, maybe next time, just come on down. I'm like, dude, you're 6 hours away, man.
It's just like every time.
It's a little bit of a commitment.
And I want to go to his museum
we're gonna go.
bad, Because
we have we're going to go. Yeah.
But,
it's a thing. We have to plan our 2022.
We really do.
So, and there was some of the people that were at these events that were amazing, right? Mountain Monsters, Small Town Monsters, Finding Bigfoot, Wild and Weird West Virginia, Cryptid Comforts, Jamie Snell, Snallygaster Museum, Manic Pixie Dream Ghouls, Moth Boys Podcast, Hillbilly Horror Stories.
I wanted to mention Jamie Snell. I finally got a hold of one of his prints.
Oh, yeah.
And it's Yinadoloshi, which we all know, Skinwalker. And
you say, as we all know.
well, I do.
I think there's like 5 people that's listening to this podcast.
You know what? And all 5 of them are my friends, and I love them.
That's fine.
But I have wanted a Skinwalker print for a very long time, and Jamie's work is the closest, in my opinion, of accuracy to a Skinwalker.
Yeah.
It has just enough meat on its bones
to
be human or folkloric, but there's a very specific detail about his that I really appreciate.
Well, don't say what it is, and we don't want to give any credence to it, because when it comes to native lore creeps me out more than
indigenous lore. And he has, but I do want to announce, he does have a new Deer Woman print that everybody should check out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
who else was there? Liz was there from Keep On Creeping On, right?
I love her stickers. We have a lot of her. We have just as many stickers from her now as we have stuffies from Lisa of Cryptid Conference.
Yeah. Appalachian Huntsman was there.
They had both their dogs. They're very nice. So, yeah.
Our buddy Steve from the Littleton Crypto Paranormal Museum in Littleton.
Yeah.
He was there. Talked to Steve for a minute. Actually, I need to send him an email. Yo, dude, are you good? Did you make it? Did you make it back?
They're reopening the museum in downtown Littleton. It's going to be bigger, and he's also got new swag for the museum too.
Yeah, which is cool, because if you're in Littleton, North Carolina, you should go check out the museum. There's a lot of stuff. It's funny. You're thinking, okay, there's going to be nothing good at this, and he's got some good stuff, so it's worth the trip to go see. Hodag's store came all the way from Wisconsin.
I know.
And those guys drove.
They gave us a sticker, and I lost it, and I feel like poop about it. So,
well,
yeah,
I'm sure we'll see him again.
I hope so.
Strange Ollie was there. Studio Cadco was there. International Paranormal Museum was there. Sasquatch Tracks was there. Micah Hanks as well. Erie Eric was there. Maximus Prime Art. Jonathan Dodd Draws.
No, Eric was at West Virginia.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
she was at West Virginia. Okay. Yeah. Conjure Dust Designs, Easton Hawk, Map in Black, Mystic Novelty Company, Holly Mae, how do you say it? Woolahan?
Yeah. She's the one that, when Seth got Pepper wanted to stay at her booth for some. I was just like, okay.
I mean, so, all these.
Pepper picks some good people.
Yes. And all these people, they're all great.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's others that we may have forgotten. If we did, we apologize. But we do have links to all these people and their presences on the internet as best we could find. So if you want to go check them out, or if you're listening to a couple of these are podcasts and things like that, if you're looking for something that you'd like to kind of maybe listen to, or maybe expand some of the ideas that you may have about paranormal, supernatural, 410, whatever, cryptid type stuff, you should check on those links. And you can click on them and it'll take you right there. And if you go to our website, which is CreepGeeks.com, if you'll take a good look at it, we don't really put a lot of stuff on there when it comes to like trying to sell you stuff or whatever. But there's links here you can kind of check out and maybe find a new interest, if you will.
Yeah.
Also, if you look at our previous episode in the show notes there is a link that takes you to Google Maps. And in that Google Map is 107 places, of which we've gone to about 40 of them, of weird places in the U.S. that you might want to go check out. Just saying. So we kind of have that too. But that's pretty much, is there anything else we need to talk about? Okay, so it's that time of year with Small Town Monsters. They're getting ready to do their Kickstarter campaign to make more movies.
Yes.
And they make great documentary movies. You can show them to your kids. They're just good. The story is told by the people that have the experience. It's not embellished or blown out and, sensationalized. To me, I like them a lot, and it's a good way to learn, if you're interested in this kind of thing, about some of the more popular things like Mothman and, Rougarou and, all that sort of thing. So every year they do their Kickstarter, and it starts in February, right?
Literally days before my birthday.
Yep.
Hint, hint.
You can help support Small Town Monsters to go out and make these movies, and we do. And if you want to check that out, that's great.
Yep.
And of course, with Kickstarter, you have different levels and stuff, and we get like the DVDs and stickers and
I'm just realizing
shirts and stuff.
Yeah, there's a lot of people in here. Like Small Town Monsters will be, love their Kickstarter.
Yeah.
It's a good way to get in.
And they're good people. I like them. I like all of them. So
get in with them and get a hold of their stuff, like their movies and their productions, because we like them. It's what we were looking for in the community as far as like
if we actually had skills, we would do what they do.
And then I do want to. They've got their stuff coming up. It ramps up now this time of year and then launches in February. Snallygaster Museum, I believe they're starting tours December 2021.
They're in Maryland.
Yeah, they're in Maryland. Jamie Snell, which, got his Skinwalker print, he's got an event coming up in December. So check out his Instagram for that.
And you can also, check out our Instagram where we do have pictures of prints and things and some of the swag that we actually got.
And then,
because we collect it too.
This is Liz's news, but I do want to mention you may find some of Liz Pavlovic's stickers in major retail places like Hot Topic.
Oh,
I'm so excited for that.
Well, hopefully she wanted you to let that information out.
It's out there.
Okay,
good. But and then there are people in here that I wanted to talk to. But instead, maybe I'm just going to put them in my Christmas shopping list because there's some very cute and then some very awesome designs from people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one of these days, we're probably going to reach out to Micah Hanks since he's in the area and it's an easy trip. It's like, hey, man, you're just down the road from us a little bit because we are, we are in Western North Carolina. Maybe he's got some information that he might want to pass along. Or not, who knows? We haven't done that sort of thing, but we're going to. I think in 2022, we're going to start pretty heavy with the interviews because we have the van set up where as long as we've got any kind of cell phone signal, we can live stream, hopefully as good as we think you can. And we can definitely do interviews and interview people.
We need to find, because Micah would be good because, in the region, and then Steve and Littleton, when they open the big new museum.
We're going to swing by.
Yeah.
And we did stress test our van because our van has a rack on top and it's got solar panels and it's got Wi-Fi antennas and cameras and lights. And we know for a fact that it is taller than 9'6" because we blasted that lodge in West Virginia, almost knocked everything off the top of it. No problem.
They were cool about it.
Yeah, they thought it was funny.
Yeah. They
wanted you to lie.
Yeah.
And you didn't. They're like, did you guys hit that? And they wanted to see if you said no.
Yeah, and then I look right over their shoulder and I saw their surveillance cameras, and I'm like, I did.
Yeah. It's like, no, we didn't hit it. We hit it 3 times going through there. So it was a fun time. So anyway, that's kind of the deal with this particular podcast episode is that we want to talk about, a couple different things, why we like doing what we're doing and going to these conferences, which we do, because it helps us interact with people and get to know people and also helps cover expenses, to be frank with the whole thing. If you have an opportunity to go, you should probably go. These events, usually you find them on Facebook and you'll find them in your local. It depends on who does them, but you can find them typically on the internet. So if you start looking, you can find these events if you're interested in that kind of thing. And, most of these events that you go to, you are supporting a small business person. And sometimes, in a lot of cases, depending on exactly where you are, you're supporting a small local business.
Yeah. Like Wild and Weird, we were the Western North Carolina people. And then like Lisa, she's all the way from Washington.
Yeah.
But
B&W, right?
Yeah. A lot of people at Wild and Weird, you're supporting West Virginia artists.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And in Kentucky, there's some Kentucky people you're supporting Kentucky. So it becomes a thing. So realistically, it's a fun time. And most of these events that you have, they're set up, they're family friendly. Why not go and learn something? And if you want to go and you actually want to see people talk and stuff, that's great. At the same time, don't be afraid to talk to some of the vendors because some of the vendors actually know something.
Yeah.
You'd be surprised what vendors actually know. So, yeah. Anyway, I think we've rambled on.
We have. And this episode's been more about going to conventions than anything paranormal, but that's okay. Again, check the show notes. We have a list of like a lot of the great people we've met and some of the people I bought swag from. I do want to thank our Patreon supporters as well as our fans on Facebook and social media. If you want to interact with us, check out the show notes. We have links to our Instagram, our TikTok, our Facebook group, and how to reach out to us directly.
Yes, including that toll-free number.
Yep.
that you can call.
Which is going to be 575-208-4025 or contact@creepgeeks.com.
Yes.
And please, guys, check out our TikTok. We've been trying to build up the content on there. We've got some fun stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
So our next particular episode, I think we're going to talk about the alien cemetery grave, amongst other things, including Martha, on our way across the country.
Oh, I almost posted spoilers about that.
No spoilers. It's all good. You can do whatever you want. Do whatever you want. All right, anyway, so there you go. So we do appreciate you taking time to tune in. You should listen to us because we do have new podcast episodes frequently. But yeah, anyway, so there you go. See you later. Take it easy. Bye-bye.
Bye.